Picture this. You've been counting down the days to your trip. You arrive at the airport early. You've passed through security, and you're standing at the gate, boarding pass in hand. The agent scans it, pauses, then looks up at you with a phrase no traveler ever wants to hear. "I'm sorry. You can't board this flight." It feels like a nightmare. But here's the truth. In 2025, this isn't rare. It's happening to thousands of passengers every single day, and most of them have no idea why until it's too late. The shocking part? Airlines don't need a huge reason to deny you boarding. Sometimes it's overbooking. Sometimes it's a small detail in your passport, and sometimes it's because an algorithm quietly decided you were the least valuable person on the plane. So today, we're breaking down 11 shocking reasons airlines deny boarding in 2025. Some of these will frustrate you, others will make you rethink how you travel. But every single one can save you from being blindsided the next time you fly. And I want you to stick around to the very end, because reason number 11 is a brand new strategy airlines don't want you to know about. And it could be the most unfair of them all. Reason 1. The overbooking gamble. Let's start with the most infamous one, overbooking. You'd think when you buy a plane ticket, it guarantees you a seat, right? Wrong. Airlines routinely sell more tickets than they have seats on the aircraft. Why? Because they're betting some passengers won't show up. Here's where it gets ugly. When everyone does show up, someone has to get bumped. In industry language, this is called denied boarding due to overbooking. In reality, it means you're stranded. This practice has been around for decades, but most people first noticed it in 2017 when a passenger was violently dragged off a United flight after refusing to give up his seat. The video went viral, sparking global outrage. United promised change, but let's be real. The practice didn't stop. In fact, the U.S. Department of Transportation reported that in 2023 alone, over 110,000 passengers were denied boarding on U.S. airlines. And that's just official numbers. Many more were volunteers, passengers who accepted vouchers to take a later flight, which doesn't get reported in the same way. Here's the part most people don't realize. Not all tickets are equal. If you booked the cheapest fare class, you're at the bottom of the priority list. Frequent flyers with elite status almost never get bumped. And if you checked in late, you're also more likely to be the unlucky one. So what can you do if this happens? First, know your rights. In the US, if you're involuntarily denied boarding, airlines must compensate you, sometimes up to 4 times the cost of your ticket. But most gate agents won't mention that. They'll start by asking for volunteers, offering maybe $200, 0 cents, or $300, 0 cents. If nobody bites, they raise the offer. A savvy traveler once held out on Delta until the offer hit $2,000, 0 cents in vouchers, plus a hotel stay. That's the power of knowing the game. Pro move: always check in online as soon as it opens. Travel light with just a carry-on. And if you're flexible with time, don't accept the first compensation offer. Airlines are willing to pay a lot more than they initially admit. Reason 2. Documentation denials. Now let's move to one of the most devastating reasons: documentation problems. Imagine this. A family saves up for years for their dream trip to Europe. They arrive at the airport excited and ready, but when the gate agent checks their passports, there's a problem. Their child's passport expires in 5 months. That's perfectly valid in the US, but many European countries require 6 months of validity. Result? Denied boarding, vacation ruin. This isn't just about passports, it can also be about visas, transit permits, or even entry restrictions you didn't realize existed. For example, some passengers flying to Canada discovered that even for a short layover, they needed an electronic travel authorization. They had no idea until the airline stopped them at the gate. Why do airlines care? Because if they let you board and you get rejected at your destination, the airline is on the hook. They're fined by the government and forced to fly you back at their own expense. So airlines play it safe by denying you at the starting line. The shocking part is how strict they can be. A smudge on a passport photo, pages that are slightly damaged, or a missing middle name on a ticket can all cause trouble. And it doesn't matter how much you argue. Once the gate agent says no, that's the end of the line. Pro move: don't just check your passport's expiration date. Research your destination's exact entry rules. Many countries require 6 months validity beyond your travel dates. Use resources like the IATA thematic database. It's the same system airlines use to check requirements. And always carry paper copies of your visas and confirmations. Because if the airline system glitches, the burden of proof is on you. Reason 3. Weight and balance excuses. Here's one most passengers don't expect: weight and balance. Every aircraft has strict rules about how weight is distributed. If a plane is too heavy in one section, it can actually be unsafe to fly. That's why baggage is carefully weighed, fuel loads are calculated, and yes, sometimes passengers themselves get denied. This usually happens on smaller regional jets. Imagine a flight where every seat is sold, but the plane also has extra cargo on board. If the loadmaster determines the aircraft is overweight, someone has to be bumped, and 9 times out of 10, it's the passengers who checked in last or paid the least. There's even been cases where crews had to physically rearrange passengers, moving them forward or backward in the cabin just to meet balance requirements. On rare occasions, if that isn't enough, a few passengers are denied boarding entirely. One traveler reported being denied on a short-haul flight because the airline needed to remove weight for a hot weather departure. The airline gave them a voucher, but the shock of being told your seat doesn't exist anymore stuck with them for years. While safety is the official reason, many believe airlines also use this as a convenient excuse when they're really juggling operational problems behind the scenes. Pro move: book earlier if you can and avoid ultra-discount fares if your schedule is critical. If there's a chance of being bumped for weight reasons, the cheapest and last-minute passengers are always the first to go. Reason 4. Aircraft swap chaos. Imagine this: you booked a flight on a big, wide-body jet, maybe a Boeing 777 with 300 seats. You picked your spot, maybe even paid extra for more legroom. But when you show up at the gate, the airline announces a last-minute aircraft swap. Suddenly, you're no longer flying on that 737, you're flying on a smaller Boeing 737 with only 180 seats. That means 120 people don't fit anymore. And guess what? Somebody has to be left behind. This happens more often than you'd think. Aircraft swaps occur when airlines reshuffle fleets due to maintenance problems, weather delays, or even when they want to save money by using a smaller jet on a less unprofitable route. On paper, it makes sense for the airline, but for passengers, it can be a nightmare. In 2022, Delta faced a wave of complaints after several long-haul routes were swapped to smaller aircraft at the last minute, leaving dozens of passengers stranded. And while airlines promise to rebook you, that can mean waiting hours or even days for another seat to open. And here's the part airlines won't say out loud. When these swaps happen, it's not random who gets left behind. Basic economy tickets, first on the chopping block. Late check-ins, also at risk. Meanwhile, frequent flyers with elite status almost always make it on. One passenger wrote about paying extra for an upgraded seat on a 787 Dreamliner, only to arrive at the airport and find themselves reassigned to a middle seat on a much smaller jet. They weren't bumped, but they lost the experience they paid for. And the airline offered little more than an apology. Pro move: if you're flying during peak seasons or on international routes, avoid booking the very last seats on a flight. Those are the easiest to drop. And whenever possible, choose airlines with multiple daily flights on your route. That way, if your flight gets downsized, you have a better chance of being rebooked quickly. Reason 5. Suspicious payment flags. Here's one you probably didn't see coming: payment issues. You bought your ticket online, your card cleared, you got your confirmation email, everything looks fine. But when you show up at the gate, the airline refuses to let you board. Why? Because your purchase was flagged as suspicious. This happens more often than you'd think, especially when you book through third-party travel sites, use a new credit card, or if your billing address doesn't perfectly match the card. Airlines are terrified of chargebacks, situations where a passenger disputes a ticket charge, because they end up eating the cost. So their fraud detection systems are extremely aggressive. The shocking part is how it plays out. Sometimes the airline will let you check in online. They'll even let you clear security. But when you arrive at the gate, you're told you need to show the physical card you used to book the ticket. And if you don't have it, say you booked with your spouse's card or a corporate account, you're stuck. One traveler shared a story of being denied boarding on a trip to Asia because they'd bought their ticket with a corporate credit card. The company handled the booking, but at the gate, the airline demanded to see the physical card. Of course, the traveler didn't have it. The result? Denied. This can also happen if your ticket was flagged as part of a hacked account purchase. Even if you are legitimate, if your booking is linked to a fraud investigation, the airline will play it safe and block you. Pro move: always carry the card you used to purchase your ticket, even if you're not planning to use it for travel expenses. And if someone else booked for you, bring a copy of their ID and a signed letter authorizing the purchase. It sounds old school, but it can save your trip. Reason 6. Security and behavior concerns. This one hits harder than most because it feels so personal. Security and behavior. Airlines have broad authority to deny boarding if they believe a passenger might be disruptive, unsafe, or pose a security risk. And in 2025, after years of heightened scrutiny from the FAA, airlines are stricter than ever. Back in 2021, the FAA reported nearly 6,000 unruly passenger incidents, the highest in U.S. history, largely due to mask mandates and pandemic stress. By 2023, the numbers dropped, but the airlines didn't forget. Policies stayed tough, and crews were trained to act at the first sign of trouble. Here's the shocking part: it doesn't take much. A sarcastic comment at the gate, raising your voice during a delay, or even looking visibly intoxicated can trigger a denial. One passenger in Dallas claimed he was denied after joking to a gate agent, "Guess I'll cause trouble on the plane then." It was meant as a laugh, but the airline didn't see it that way. Alcohol plays a big role too. If you've had a few drinks at the bar and look tipsy, you could be blocked from boarding, even if you're perfectly capable of handling yourself. Airlines would rather lose one customer than risk a mid-air disruption. And here's the part most people don't realize. Airlines often staff flights with the minimum number of crew members allowed by law. That means they don't have the manpower to handle multiple disruptive passengers, so they err on the side of caution. Pro move: stay calm, stay polite, and save complaints for later. File a customer service report after your flight instead of arguing at the gate. Once you're flagged as a potential problem, your chances of getting on that plane drop to near zero. Reason 7. The dress code denial. Yes, it's 2025, and airlines still sometimes deny boarding based on clothing. Most major carriers don't advertise strict dress codes for paying passengers. But if your outfit is deemed offensive or inappropriate, staff can refuse you entry, and it's happened more often than you might think. There have been cases of passengers denied for wearing shirts with profanity, for clothing considered too revealing, and for outfits that staff claimed might disturb other passengers. Back in 2017, a woman went viral after being denied boarding for wearing leggings on a United flight. The airline defended the decision by saying she was flying on a staff buddy pass, which has even stricter rules. That's an important distinction. If you're flying on an employee pass or buddy ticket, you're expected to represent the airline. Jeans, casual wear, or gym clothes can all get you blocked. But even regular passengers have faced this issue. The problem is, it's subjective. What one crew member considers offensive, another might ignore. That means a perfectly fine outfit in New York could get flagged in Dubai or Tokyo. And there's no official line you can point to in the rulebook. Pro move: play it safe when flying. Avoid clothing with controversial slogans or graphics. Choose outfits that are comfortable but neutral. And if you're traveling internationally, remember cultural sensitivities. What's fine in Los Angeles may not fly in Doha. Reason 8. Health and fitness to fly. Here's one of the most personal and frustrating reasons airlines can deny you: health concerns. Even if you've got a valid ticket and show up on time, if the airline believes you're too sick to travel, they can stop you at the gate. And in 2025, with stricter post-pandemic guidelines, this is happening more often than passengers realize. Sometimes it's obvious, someone running a high fever or visibly struggling to breathe. But in other cases, it's much murkier. One woman recovering from bronchitis shared that she was denied boarding because she was coughing too much in the waiting area. She wasn't contagious anymore, but to the gate agents, she looked like a potential safety risk. Pregnant passengers also face this problem. Many airlines require a doctor's note if you're flying after 36 weeks. Some go further and ask for medical clearance as early as 32 weeks for long-haul flights. Imagine being stopped at the gate, belly showing, and told you can't fly without paperwork you didn't know you needed. Here's the kicker: gate agents and flight attendants aren't doctors, yet they have the authority to make these calls. And if they decide you're unfit, you're not flying. Pro move: if you're recovering from any visible illness, even something as simple as a lingering cough, carry a doctor's note clearing you for travel. For pregnancy, always check your airline's exact rules and bring documentation. And if you're on medication that might cause drowsiness or dizziness, consider carrying a prescription bottle to show proof. It's not about fairness, it's about being prepared. Reason 9. Immigration and watch list flags. Sometimes the denial doesn't come from the airline at all. It comes from the government. Airlines are required to check passenger details against immigration systems and security watch lists. If there's a flag, even a mistaken one, you can be stopped cold. One traveler shared how they were denied boarding because they had overstayed a visa years earlier in Europe. They didn't even realize it was still on record. Another passenger in the US discovered they shared the same name as someone on a no-fly list. For months, they were pulled aside, questioned, and in some cases, outright denied boarding until they could clear their name with the TSA. This problem is only getting more common. In 2025, airlines are sharing more data with governments than ever before. Entry bans, unpaid fines, even outstanding warrants can trigger a block. And airlines have no choice but to comply. The worst part? Sometimes you don't find out until you're at the gate. You'll get a vague explanation like documentation issue or government restriction, but the staff won't be able to tell you much more. Pro move: if you've ever had visa issues, overstays, or security hassles in the past, check your status before traveling. Keep physical copies of entry permits, visas, and travel authorizations. And if you're repeatedly flagged, apply for a redress number through your government to avoid mistaken identity problems in the future.